Welcome to Lesson 3, Part 2. Let's rethink what we did in Part 1. What was it that we covered? Why was that important? And then what was your greatest takeaway? Meaning, what was the thing that you thought was most interesting or had the most impact on you? You should have answered that as a part of the Ed Puzzle questions. So this is a moment for you to think and reconnect with what we have covered before. So let's think about what else it is that we might need to know or learn. How would you go about describing an organizational chart to someone that is new to JCC or JROTC, or someone who doesn't have any clue about those two programs? And in all honesty, what is an organizational chart? Do you know what an organizational chart is? What do you think you might hear or see inside of an organizational chart, and why might an organizational chart be important? Rank and structure. Let's take a look at duties and responsibilities, the pyramid of authority, rank and grade, and battalion organization. When we talk about the pyramid of authority, understand this is a top-down model. So we start at the top with unity of command, and then we get to the bottom with chain of command. Unity of command simply means that in every effective unit, whether it's military, education, law enforcement, corporate, or even small business, there must be only one commander who is responsible for all that the unit does or all that it fails to do. The buck stops here. This is the person that is accountable for everything that happens and what everybody under them does. Span of control. Span of control is next. So when you look at span of control is the number of people that an individual manager or leader can actually control, supervise, and direct. That number is usually 5. If you look at a company commander is responsible for managing the executive officer and then 4 platoon leaders. That would be 5 people. Each platoon leader or lieutenant is responsible for managing 4 squads and the platoon sergeant. Okay, the platoon sergeant is responsible for, and it goes on and on and on. So understanding, that in any organization, the most people that a manager or a leader can effectively command and control is 5. And all of this leads us to the chain of command. The chain of command is a succession of leaders through which authority and commands pass from leaders to subordinates. So, as people promote, as people gain more responsibility, then they gain more people that they're responsible for. A squad leader is also going to have a team leader. The squad leader is responsible for 5 people, and the team leader is responsible for 5 people. As they promote, then they're going to move up in the ranks and they're going to gain more responsibility and more people that they're supervising, or at least a larger unit or sized unit that they are supervising. And again, this is top down. We start with the person who's in charge, who makes all the decisions, who's responsible for success or failure. Then we look at the number of people that they're responsible for, and then we move into the chain of command, which means who is responsible for doing what and who has the authority to direct who to do what. This gives you an idea of a promotion rubric, or how someone in JROTC would promote from corporal to sergeant, sergeant to staff sergeant to sergeant first class to master sergeant, and so on up the chain. Right? Like I said, this is an example, and each JROTC organization is going to be a little bit different. As we were looking at the cadet handbook for JCC, the cadet handbook gave you the promotion requirements to move from cadet to cadet private, from cadet private to cadet private first class, and from cadet private first class to cadet corporal. Same thing here. When you're looking at the leadership responsibilities, these are the leadership responsibilities at the JROTC level, and this is based on a company arrangement. So your squad leaders are going to typically be your corporals, your team leaders are going to be your sergeants, squad leaders are going to be your staff sergeants, supply sergeant would also be a staff sergeant, company administration would be a staff sergeant, company platoon sergeant would be a sergeant first class, company platoon leader would be a second lieutenant, company first sergeant, and then you're going to have your company commander. Platoon leaders, so individual, depending on how it's set up, if you have more than one per platoon per company, and normally it's 4 headquarters and then 3 other platoons, those are going to be led by a second lieutenant, and then the company executive officer would be a first lieutenant. But this gives you an example of what each of their duties and responsibilities are within those positions. So I'm going to give you a minute to take a look at that and review that. All right, so this is a video I want you guys to watch. It talks about roles and responsibilities, and it apply these to the different ranks. This is actually done by a JROTC instructor talking about their organization and what the roles of the commanders, non-commissioned officers are in coordinating staff. So take a look at that video, and then we'll keep on going. All right, so leadership positions. The battalion commander is going to be a lieutenant colonel or cadet lieutenant colonel, right? They are going to know staff and leadership duties and responsibilities. They're going to provide the vision and guidance to all cadets. They're going to coordinate all actions with the instructors. They're going to serve as a liaison to the high school principal, conduct officer development, conduct officer promotion boards, and supervise a battalion staff briefing. Now at the JCC level, this would be the commander of cadets, and that's going to be a cadet corporal. And where it says high school principal, just replace that with middle school principal. The expectations are the same for the commander of cadets. Now, the executive officer would be the second person in charge, right? And that's going to be held by a cadet major. They're going to know all staff duties and responsibilities. They're going to ensure that all staff functions are accomplished. They're going to prepare the battalion staff briefing. They're going to conduct the after-action reviews or AARs for any events that are done and any reflections that are going to occur. And then they're going to serve as a liaison to all cadet groups. So any of the individual groups that are doing anything, they are the person who is responsible for coordinating with them and passing that information up the chain of command. All right. At JCC, the executive officer is going to be a private first class. It could also be held by a corporal if there was more than one corporal in the program. Command Sergeant Major is a third in charge. In this case, they're going to know all the NCO or non-commissioned officer duties and responsibilities. They're going to maintain the cleanliness of all battalion areas. So they're responsible for coordinating with the individual squad leaders and team leaders and platoon leaders to make sure that they're cleaning up their area at the end of each class or each event. They're going to track cadet merit and demerits. At the high school level, you can receive merits and demerits, and these are things that either gain you privileges or reduce the privileges that you have. They're going to maintain the battalion proficiency, so there's certain training material or training criteria that must be met. It's their responsibility to maintain that. They're going to conduct and supervise all the non-commissioned officer development and boards. They're going to conduct the non-commissioned officer promotion boards, and they're going to supervise and plan color guard activities. At the middle school level, the Command Sergeant Major, again, could be a corporal if there is more than 2 corporals in the program, or could also be a private first class. Typically, the commander of cadets is an 8th grader. The assistant commander of cadets or the executive officer is also an 8th grader, and the Command Sergeant Major position could be a 7th or 8th grader depending upon the selection board. Now, staff positions. These are positions identified by the letter S. So S1, S2, S3, S4, S5, S6. Right? S1 is personnel, and at the high school level is going to be a cadet captain. At middle school level, these positions are going to be held by either a cadet private first class or cadet private, depending upon their selection. So S1 deals with personnel actions, cadet records, determining promotion board eligibility, maintaining the attendance records at events, preparing information for the JUMS input. That's a high school system. They're going to assist or input that information, and then they're going to input and control the merits and demerit points. S2 is safety. This is also going to be held by a cadet captain. Or at the middle school level, a cadet private first class or cadet private. They supervise the battalion physical security. They are going to serve as the event staff for planning and conducting of any kind of training events. They're going to prepare the risk assessments, so they're going to identify what the hazards might be and how we're going to prevent those hazards. They're going to attend the events, and they're responsible for ensuring that we have a first aid kit on hand. And then they're the ones that write the initial after action reports. So when the after action review is taking place, so that AAR, they're the ones who are taking the notes, and then they're going to actually be providing that up the chain of command. S3 operations, this is going to be held by a cadet major at the high school level. Again, private first class or cadet private at the middle school level. They're responsible for coordinating the training and operations. They're responsible for preparing the training schedules, preparing field trip requests, preparing permission slips, preparing all training activity plans, coordinating service learning activities, coordinating with the instructors for all matters that concern recruiting, so getting more people into the program, and then preparing a recruiting plan. S4 logistics. This would be a cadet captain, again, cadet private first class or cadet private at middle school, maintain battalion uniforms and equipment, issue clothing, awards, and equipment, coordinate for transportation to and from events and activities, coordinate food, water, first aid at events, and then maintaining all the equipment. S5, public affairs, also a cadet captain. They are the principal staff officer for all matters concerning public affairs, so maintaining a website, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever it happens to be, they're responsible for that. They're going to prepare the advertising plan. They're going to coordinate photo and video coverage for all activities and events. If they need to coordinate with the newspaper, like the school newspaper, or the yearbook staff, they're the ones that do that coordination. Any display cases or bulletin boards they maintain. And then, as you see here, battalion website, if the battalion has a website. This position is also in middle school and does the same activities. Lastly is S6 or finance. This is going to be a cadet captain. Again, cadet private first class or private, depending upon selection process. They are the computer operator. They're responsible for maintaining any of the computers, setting up the computer equipment, ensuring the setup and monitor of the bank account, prepare and coordinate fundraisers, prepare all paperwork for deposits and withdrawals, and ultimately prepare a budget for the school year. The S6 position has not been used currently at Stripling Middle School. That doesn't mean that we won't do that this year. All right, so we talked about the pyramid of authority. So what were the three elements in the pyramid of authority? If you selected D, unity of command, span of control, and chain of command, you're correct. What is span of control? So take a look at this. If you selected A, the number of immediate subordinates, that one commander or leader can effectively control, supervise, and direct, you would be correct. So think about that staff position. How does that fit in the chain of command? And, we think about promotion. What are the promotion requirements? All right, guys. That is going to be the end of Unit 1, Lesson 3, Part 2. Again, I want you to think about, what did we cover? Why was this important? And what was your greatest takeaway? Next, we'll be moving into Lesson 3, Part 3.